what are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.
I blame it on industry. I blame it on my own hypocrisy. It's education and politicians. No one's willing to step up and speak.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Pace Radio Show. We are live here at lifestyleradio.ca and .net. And I am live in the front window of Canada's in downtown Campbellford. I'm your host, Al Graham. Tonight, Kim Cooper joins me as my joint host, and her guest is a person who not only helps patients, but also works hard at ending cannabis stigma, I just hate it, and educating people about cannabis. But before we find out more about our guest, it's time to have a little chat with Kim. Well, Kim, what do you think?
Tonight?
Not too bad, not too bad. I got no snow on the ground, but it is cold.
Yeah, we got wind up here.
Wind up there, eh? Now that you're a little further south, you have a little bit less snow?
Yes. Yes.
They still call you Northern Ontario, Kim?
Well, yeah, Timmins is still pretty far north.
Mid-north, yeah. Okay. Well, Kim. Let's say news today. I was going to say last Friday morning, I received a message that shocked the hell out of me. Something I didn't know we were even involved in. Yeah. And I'm going to have to say congratulations.
Yeah. And back at you. Right?
Thank you very much. And what we're talking about is we found out Friday morning that during the Lift Cannabis Awards that were held in Toronto Thursday night, that the Pace Radio Show came in second place in the podcast category. And
yeah.
I'll tell you, I was just, what?
I'm blown away. When I found out, I was speechless. My jaw was on the floor. I'm like, what? When were we nominated? I didn't even know we were in the running for anything, and then we find out we won second place. I was blown right away.
Yeah, I didn't have a clue. I didn't have a clue anything about it. You know, like we didn't have any. You can listen to all our recordings or past podcasts. We never promoted it or anything as far as, you know, hey, come vote for us or anything along that line. So,
and I wish I would have.
Well, hey, I know. Thanks to everybody who voted for us and whoever nominated us. Thank you very much. It was, something that we didn't expect. It's quite the honor.
Huge honor to be nominated. Even bigger honor to come in second, without any, publicity or begging for votes, so to speak, from the general public. This was done of our listenership's own accord, without our knowledge, which makes it kind of even a greater honor to know that we could do this, like something like this could happen without our involvement at all. Yeah. It speaks volumes for everybody on the show. Our other joint hosts that are involved, Alicia's on this show. We have Debbie once in a while, not here so much these days, but big part of the show as well. And of course, produced by Al Rapp and, conceived by yourself, Al Graham, who's a part of every single one of our shows. Kudos to all involved. That's awesome.
Yeah, our guests, the guests that we get that come on to the program, share their story or talk about their experiences, that just want to get out there to talk. And I believe we've given them an opportunity to have a voice, to be heard. And something like this shows that, we are making a difference. And I'm just sometimes speechless.
Yeah, exactly. I'd like to make a point too that out of the three, top three podcasts that won first, second, and third, we are the only radio station, radio show. The other two are like TV podcasts, so you've got some visual effects happening there.
Yeah.
We're the only live radio show that was even in the running, and we took second.
Very good. I didn't realize that. I did look at these other shows. The Cannabis Show, they came in first place, and the Expert Joints, they came in third.
Yeah, and they're both TV podcasts, so we're the only one live radio.
The only live radio. Jeez, that's good. So for anybody who didn't know, the nominations started back at the 1st of August. It ran for the whole month. And they were created by, categories were created by the way that people, sent in nominations.
Yeah.
So,
people nominated whoever and whatever they wanted, I guess, within the cannabis industry and community. And Lyft said, yeah, send in your nominations, and then we'll make up categories, and we'll put all the nominees out there. And we became part of that, and winners in the category for podcast.
Now, people had the whole month of September to vote. Geez, I wish I had gone and looked at see who. Who all was in the running for you see the top three, but if there was 6 or 8 or whatever in all the different categories that people were voting on, would have been interesting to read it. So
yeah, for sure, we'll have to get to that next year.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to get more of our attention next year now.
Just so you know, we will be receiving something. I was contacted today. Some people have asked me, we will be contacted by Lyft. Was there, did we get a trophy or anything like that? Today I was contacted by a rep from Lyft, and we will be receiving something. When it becomes available, I'll be able to share that with everybody.
Excellent. Quite an honor. Don't know what else to say except thank you to everyone.
Yes, big thank you to everybody, and thank you to Lyft and everybody involved. Just it was voter driven. Other ones that were voter driven were things like Cannabis Crusader, who I believe was Clinton Young. This year, MJ Canada is who he represents. Does a lot in the community, big advocate, fighting the courts and more on the ground level in Toronto as well as in BC. There were some that were done by committee, and I looked through the list of people on that committee. There's some names I didn't know, but there was a lot that our listeners would know, like Remo, Adam Greenblatt, who's been a guest on the show in the past, Jenna Valeriani.
Valeriani.
Yes, she's been a guest on the show. John Fowler, Bubble Man. Yeah. They voted on things like Lifetime Achievement Awards, Startup of the Year, Product of the Year, stuff like that. So.
So, names that are known by many in the community and loved and respected by many. Long-standing members of the community that know what they're talking about. So it's it's quite the honor to have a part of that.
Yeah, so I went through some of the other awards just to let some people know some things. Top glass blower, Redbeard, last guest on the show as well. Top dispensary, Can Do in Toronto. There's the ladies from Eden, MMJ Canada. They were in there. Top lounges in the East was Vapor Central, Higher Limits, and Planet Paradise. And for people who are looking for vaporizers, top portable vaporizer was an Azeri Air Pack 3 in the Da Vinci Accent.
There you go. There you go. And you can find out more from the Canada Lyft site, available online. And I think we also have a link on our station host page as well.
CanadianCannabisAwards.com.
There you go.
Yeah, I think that's cool. I was just, I'm still shaking my hand over it. So,
I know.
I had a good little conversation with the rep there today. So.
Yeah, right on.
All right. Well, it's time to move on to our guest. What do you think?
Yeah. Interesting guest tonight.
I agree. So it's time to welcome the person who I described as someone who likes to help patients, who works hard at ending cannabis stigma. It's terrible stuff, as I mentioned, and educates the people. And right now, I'd like to welcome Sherry Bennett to the Pace Radio Show. Hello, Sherry. How are you?
Hi, and thank you for having me, and congratulations on your win. That's amazing. Number two. That's good.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and we really appreciate you coming on the program and joining us tonight.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
And it's always great to hear from patients and what they're doing, as advocates, so, whatever it is. And I know that you've got something on the go that you'd like to share with our listeners tonight. I look forward to hearing it. As I mentioned before the show, and as our listeners know, I always hand the reins over to my joint hosts to get things going, and then I will join in as the night progresses.
That's wonderful. Good.
All right. Okay. Over to you, Kim.
Thanks so much, Al. Good evening, and how are you tonight, Sherry? Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you. It's my pleasure. My pleasure.
I'd like to introduce our listeners to Miss Sherry. Sherry Bennett. You're an advocate now, and you operate a small business called concierge, sort of concierge service. You got into advocating and speaking on behalf of cannabis later on in your life, and it's due to you being a patient. We find this through many of our past guests. They're patients and they become advocates. Patients first, I always say. Your story, you developed PTSD, and after many years of trial and error on meds, you found cannabis. Can you give our listener, Sherry, just a bit of an overview of your story? Let us know who's Sherry.
Yeah. So I have a small company called Bayview Concierge, and what I do is I organize nursing care and personal support care workers. And over the last couple of years, I've had several elder clients ask me to get them legal access to medical cannabis oil, because once they realized they didn't have to smoke it, they thought it was a great idea. And I've been researching it for myself for years beforehand, because I live with symptoms of PTSD. It's a brutal condition which comes with nightmares and flashbacks and anxiety off the Richter scale, frankly. So I went through the whole process with my clients, and then I went through it for myself. And honestly, I have had not only significant results, but superior results to my the antidepressants and the anti-anxiety and sleep medications that I was taking before. So I'm off those, and medical cannabis oil helps me. I believe it has changed my life in a profoundly good way. I'll tell you. Okay, go ahead. Ask questions.
No. I'm just saying. Go. Yeah. Excellent. So you were able to use the oil to get off of all of your pharmaceutical meds that you were on.
And I don't say that all pharmaceuticals are bad, but I have had 4 funerals in the past 12 months of friends of mine who have lost their children, had to bury their children because of opioid overdoses, right? Yeah. And apparently it's a huge epidemic now in Canada. Worse than the SARS issue, if you can believe. It is so bad. And I'm on the front lines, and I'm always talking to people that have had horrendous trauma in their lives. And if you don't think that post-trauma is going to be more like prevalently diagnosed, burying your children is a horrible, horrible thing. Anyway, so there's several layers of issues of this, but I'm standing up before the world now saying that the civilian population of those of us living with PTSD far exceeds those that are suffering from combat-related PTSD, like the military people and everything. And why? Because we women, I'll tell you about this in a minute, but we women who have been raped and assaulted suffer tremendously. Everybody, we hear little snippets on the news, but nobody knows the extent of there's layers and layers of trauma, and it's really a horrible condition to live with.
Yeah.
So if you want, I can keep going, or you keep asking me, but I'd rather, I'm sort of working backwards. I'm trying to work backwards right now. So
no, it's all good. So you're using cannabis oil, and you found that you've gotten relief, and you've gotten off of a lot of the anxiety meds that you are on, that were treating your PTSD. In a roundabout way, we've talked about, trauma in women, and how it's becoming more of a concern these days, more prevalent these days. A lot of women are being diagnosed with PTSD, and they're even calling it a new syndrome. Instead of PTSD, it's PTSS syndrome instead. They're trying to come up with a new name. I heard that recently. But it's basically the same thing. But it's more prevalent in women these days. And you have a theory as to why that is. And it's due to what happened to you. So why don't you tell us what caused your PTSD?
So 22 years ago, I was suffering from a tsunami of grief because I had watched several members of my family die. I had 2 small children, and I went to a doctor for grief counseling and actually marriage counseling as well. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But this doctor gained my trust, drugged me, and raped me. So I choose not to go into the details, but what I will say is that the horrendous trauma was actually the 10 years in court and being ripped apart by the legal system. And it's really no wonder why women don't come forward, because it's horror. It's absolute horror. So my process took 10 years. I made a complaint to the College of Physicians and Surgeons in 1996, almost a year after the assault, because I was faced too with a lot of shame and guilt and isolation. And at the time, it was just, it was horrible for women to come forward with these issues. And I decided, I got to go backtrack a bit. But the reason I went to this doctor in the first place, I came from a medical family. My father was a doctor who died of AIDS in the 1980s when my babies were so small, and he got it. It was contracted through his medical practice.
Right.
So no one in those days, no one would come near us, and we had to do all the palliative care ourselves. And I had 2 small babies at the time, and in those days, there were parents that wouldn't let their children play with my children, my little babies, because they thought they were going to get AIDS, right?
Yeah, well, everybody was afraid it was a new disease. Nobody knew what they were dealing with or how it was contracted.
Exactly, and I was terrified too. And I used to do the night shift. We all took turns, and we were very creative, and we did a wonderful job. But it took a long time of palliative care and having to learn how to give morphine injections and that sort of thing. And in the end, when my dad died, we couldn't find a funeral home to accept his body. That's how bad the stigma was back then. And eventually we did, but it was a horrible time. So
that added to your trauma as well. Could be the beginnings of your trauma.
I think that was the beginning, right? And so then I know that I'm suffering from this, like, a huge, complicated grief, because 4 members of my family died, boom, 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 within 7 years. So we were doing 7 years of palliative care, and I was concerned that my children, my small children at the time, were being negatively affected, because I was sort of operating on autopilot. I was in shock. So I was there, but I wasn't there. Like, I went through the motions and took my kids to their soccer, whatever, not soccer, but whatever programming they had.
Activities,
back then, right? Yeah, activities. And I knew I was really, suffering big time. So I'm at the bottom of I'm at the very lowest point of my life. And then
you sought out help.
I sought help because, and to me, I had no idea, or even, it didn't cross my mind that a doctor, who is, you trust these people sometimes before you even go into the office, right? It's just society. And anyway,
well, your doctor, you go into a doctor's office with you're supposed to have a feeling of trust.
Exactly.
They've sworn an oath to do no wrong, to cause no harm. You walk in there with a sense of trust. I mean, that's what we're taught, and that's how we're raised. You trust your doctor.
So short story, so that there was like a horror when I found out, because I was drugged in some way, we still don't know. And there are others, women that have gone into certain hospitals in the area where I live for a hysterectomy, for instance, and they wake up with the doctor's penis in their mouth. I mean, how horrendous is this? Okay, and the statistics are staggering, and so I came forward to go through the court system and put myself through this because I was so appalled. Doctors are meant to do no harm. Go through this 10-year process of a civil proceeding and then a parallel College of Physicians and Surgeons tribunal that took over. And then that's what caused the real trauma, because being cross-examined and ripped apart over and over and over again. And I won a judgment. I can't remember back then. I think it was like $200,000, $300,000, I don't know, but my legal fees cost in excess of $500,000, and then I look at all the doctors and psychologists.
Besides the numbers, numbers are irrelevant. You won your judgment is the point. The man was found guilty.
The reason I'm coming forward now is, after all these years, I've had some really good help and lots of really good coping strategies now, but today isn't it National Awareness Day for Violence Against Women, right?
Right.
And we're hearing stories about all these women being raped in the RCMP and the military and the Navy. Well, and in schools. And if they can't go to a doctor if we can't clean up our system, the system is so dysfunctional. It's horrible. And the doctors get their legal fees paid by the CMPA, the Canadian Medical Protection Agency, I think it's called. And we victims or patients are given no legal representation. It's just the power imbalance is abhorrent. So we witnesses for the College of Physicians and Surgeons, no legal full. Are you there? Sorry?
Yep. Sorry. Keep going.
Sorry. Yeah, so there's no, it's just, we don't have full party standing. It's horror.
Right. It's not an even playing field if they've got full representation and the victim does not.
Sounds like a David and Goliath.
Yeah.
Pardon? Sorry. What
Sounds
did you
like a
say?
David
Pardon?
and Goliath situation.
Yeah. Oh, it's like it's an old boys' school too, and so there were 3 task force, in the last 25 years. I was part of the most recent one. So the Minister of Health and Long-Term Care, Dr. Oh my goodness, Eric, I can't remember. Forgive me, can't remember.
Okay.
He called for an independent task force. Yeah, thank you. Led by Mary Lou McPhedran, Senator Mary Lou McPhedran. And so some of us were interviewed, and a lot of women came forward, sometimes publicly, and I didn't talk publicly at the time. But I'm just so driven now to be the voice of those who can no longer speak, because they've been silenced, because they're ashamed, or because they're dead, because they took their own lives. A lot of people that have PTSD die by suicide because they can't take the side effects. The side effects, the nightmares and flashbacks are horrendous. So for me, medical cannabis has given me relief for the first time in 22 years. This is huge. And then I see the effect it has on my elder clients and my friends that are bereaved mothers even, or the doctors that I know that are so passionate about helping people wean off their opioids, their Percocets and pain meds. And yes, we need pain meds and we need opioids. We need them. But the opioid crisis is huge right now. So I can't stay silent anymore. And I understand why women don't come forward. It's horror. It's horrible. Like, why? And fear of not being believed, fear of being ridiculed, fear of being ripped to shreds in the court system. And it is brutal. It is brutal, I'm telling you. So I'm very fortunate to have some lovely, wonderful doctors in my network and lovely, wonderful men who have helped me out along the way. So I'm not naming names. I'll tell you all the good doctors that helped me, but I got a list of really, really good doctors and really lovely, lovely, strong men who have stepped up to the plate. But having said that, violence against women is a man's issue, right? It really is.
Did you happen to catch the news today about Times Magazine Person of the Year?
Somebody told me about that, but what is that? Tell me.
It's not a person. It's the movement. It's the silent speakers.
Oh, like the Me Too?
It's the ladies who are speaking out. Yeah.
Wow.
It's the Me Too.
And oh wow, yeah, it's huge. It's huge. Yeah. And the stats for women being assaulted by their healthcare professionals is, like I said before, staggering. It is absolutely staggering. And so, and all that I say can be well substantiated, and I can feed you the facts if you need. But I just say I can't. I have a little beautiful baby granddaughter now. I have a daughter. I'm speaking for all the daughters that are coming after us. I'm speaking for, like I said, those that don't have a voice. For whatever reason. And I am motivated to educate people about cannabis. So I think I'm well positioned to take this on because I'm no stranger to stigma. I know cannabis inside and out now. I've been immersed in the research and studying, and I'm still learning every day. I've tried about I think 9 licensed producers now, the medical grade cannabis from licensed producers, and I'm testing the ones that work best for me. And
you're doing the research.
I'm doing the research, but on myself too, and I'm also concerned. I'm so concerned about the, frankly, the way that the laws are going to unfold. It's really messy.
Well, that's a whole other subject. Before we switch over to that subject, I just want to backtrack just a little bit. Yeah. I mean, some of the stuff that you went through there, I mean, it's amazing. The medical profession has been looked at, shall we say, I guess, more in the last year than it has been throughout history. More and more people are standing up and coming out and saying, look, there's issues with some of these medical professionals. And I'm glad to see it. The thing I think that needs to change the most, and sadly, that's at the legal level, and that's what victims go through. With having to come forward, the testifying, the scrutiny that their lives are picked apart, and you have absolutely no resources at all to help you through it. That's just a freaking shame.
And reliving it all, like you said, over and over and over again.
And that can be the cause of the PTSD. I mean, the event itself was traumatic enough to get you there, but the reliving puts you over the edge.
So
that's exactly it.
Keep beating you with your story,
That's exactly it. And then in court, they would tell me, well, what kind of things did you talk about with this doctor? And it all had to do with watching my dad deteriorate and other people in my family. And it was messy, and I don't want to get into those details right now. But so what I'm doing is I just feel I can't stay silent anymore. I can't do it. And I know a lot because
you're a brave lady.
I tell people I may not have the academic credentials that you have, but I have a PhD in life experience, right?
Exactly.
And,
right.
Yeah, I do. And I also, after the trial, after it was over, like 10 years after this, I couldn't, it affected my ability to get employment. I have only a minimal amount of energy every day, right? So it affected my marriage. It affected my everything, every aspect of my life. So I worked in a funeral home, and I started volunteering in women's shelters just for something to get me out of bed, like get out of bed in the morning, because I was in shock for so many years. And so I started doing, if you can believe it, grief and bereavement counseling. And then after doing several years of palliative care, I decided to get trained in doing palliative care. And I took some courses, and then I was trying to immerse myself in the horror. I guess I saw so many dead bodies, mostly my family members. And I was trying to I don't know what I was trying to do. I was just at the time, when I'm looking back now, I'm thinking just trying to put one foot in front of the other. And I got to learn so much about people and the horrors they go through. And it brings me to my knees. But I don't want to go to one more funeral of any of my, I don't want any more, I can't take it. It's like being children, being very,
try and make change.
Yeah, I have to do it, and I'm trying to educate as many people as I can in the shortest possible time frame. So, I think you're going to achieve. I don't know. It's really exhausting because I'm faced with a lot of stigma where I am here in Richmond Hill, Ontario, and it's just huge. And I'm trying to organize this series of high-level educational seminars.
We're going to get back to that.
That's a cue for me to say,
no,
it's break time, and we'll discuss that when we come back from break.
Okay.
All right, it's break time. And tonight, our bumper music is a little bit different. It's not actually music, but we're going to hear from Dr. Sue Sisley to talk to us about research on PTSD and cannabis. When we return, Kim and I will continue our talk with our guest, Sherry Bennett. This is the Pace Radio Show here on lifestyleradio.ca and .net. Here on Lifestyle Radio.
Hang up and try again.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
Okay, so we're on break. Oh, that sounded interesting. What the hell happened there?
I don't know. I don't hear any audio.
Neither do I.
I can hear you guys. No.
Yeah.
We can song.
Well, after all, we got to stand tall. It's our duty to sound the deed away.
Say what you say, I just sail away. She can't stand me, but I miss her face. I feel like drowning, but the tide's too low. And now I'm waiting for the undertow. So I stand tall against a little better. I see the wall we can break down together. Stand strong against a little better. Now we can break it down.
My name is Sue Sisley, and I am on faculty at the University of Arizona, where I practice internal medicine and psychiatry. So I'm mostly doing primary care for seriously mentally ill patients. People who suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder end up on 5 or 6 different psychiatric meds, and then they're plagued with all kinds of side effects and drug interactions.
Canada, the time to act is now. These days, your customers are seeking variety. Increase your earning potential by expanding your inventory with CC Nexus, Canada's largest cannabis seed wholesaler. CC Nexus stocks over 60 reputable breeders, including Canuck seeds, with a wealth of autoflower, regular, feminized, and CBD strains. All first-time customers will receive a free pack of Canuck seeds, plus a mug, t-shirt, and additional promotional materials. Add strains and increase your profit with CC Nexus, your Canadian-owned and operated wholesaler of cannabis seeds. Discreet, worldwide stealth shipping from Canada, supporting you locally. Call today 1-844-843-7995, 1-844-843-7995, or visit us at ccnexus.global.
The following is a public service announcement from the Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners Society. The Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners Society is a non-profit organization dedicated to ensuring improved access to therapeutic cannabis and cannabis byproducts in Canada. With a federal government that has committed to legalizing cannabis, we feel it is our duty to ensure that the medicinal use of cannabis doesn't get lost in the process and that there are clear distinctions made between the medicinal and recreational use of cannabis. It is our mission to ensure that government regulation doesn't get in the way of a sick, disabled, or terminally ill person's right to use or produce this amazing natural health product. If you would like to get involved, you can contact us on the internet www.canadiantherapeuticCannabisPartners.com, on Facebook, CTCP Society, or search Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners.
CTCP now operates a medicinal cannabis signing clinic. If you want to grow your own medicinal cannabis and are located anywhere in Canada, then I'd like to suggest that you give them a call. They can be reached at 1-613-967-9888. That's 1-613-967-9888, and grow on with CTCP.
Man, have you been to Canadays yet? Canadays, Campbellford's premier cannabis culture shop at 19 Bridge Street West. They've got bongs, oil rigs, grinders, and papers. Everything you need for consumption. They've got seeds, soil, nutrients, and dome trays too. Everything you need for cultivation. Get top quality seeds from top suppliers like Canuck and wholesaler Nexus. Canadays. They've got all kinds of awesome cannabis novelties, clothing, and apparel. I know, right? It's a lot more than just a bong shop. Interested in gaining legal access? Canadays can help. They're a PACE information center. You know, people advocating cannabis education. Come by the shop and check it out. 19 Bridge Street West, Campbellford. Canadays. Have your say without saying a word. Canadays.ca.
The way marijuana with its 60 or 70 different phytocannabinoids and this entourage effect, the way they all interact so elegantly with each other, the truth is that marijuana can treat the whole spectrum of PTSD symptoms with this one medication. The whole spectrum of PTSD symptoms with this one medication.
Hey, we're back. You're listening to the Pace Radio Show. We are live here at lifestyleradio.ca. But if you miss our live shows, don't forget, you can also catch the podcast at Mixcloud, TuneIn Radio, plus other social media outlets such as iTunes and the U.S. version of iHeartRadio. Maybe someday we'll get on the Canadian one to see what happens. Who knows? As the last commercial mentioned, Canadays. I am in the front window here at Canadays in downtown Campbellford. I'm going to throw them a little plug and let everybody know that they're having a holiday sale here. You can save money on bongs and vaporizers, flags, jewelry, buttons. As the commercial says, have a say without saying a word, because when you can read a button that's telling people some cannabis education, that's all that needs to be done without saying a word. So tonight on the radio show, we have our guest, Sherry Bennett, and my joint host, Northern Ontario, Kim Cooper. Well, ladies, before the break, we heard a lot about Sherry's story and what she had gone through. And just before then, we were going to switch topics to something else. And what was that again?
Something called Let's Talk Cannabis.
Why don't we? Why don't we? Okay, over to you, Kim.
All right, thanks, Sal. Yeah, we're going to get into a little subject called a discussion group, I guess, called Let's Talk Cannabis. Now, this is an event that's held in Richmond Hill, and you mentioned a little bit about, touched on Richmond Hill. I know all about Richmond Hill. I used to live in Richmond Hill. I'm a former Torontonian girl. I spent some time in Richmond Hill. I have many friends who are from Richmond Hill. I understand the mentality behind the Richmond Hill people. So to say no more as far as that's concerned. But anyway, this is an event held at the Richmond Hill Center for the Performing Arts. It's an event called Let's Talk Cannabis. There's a bunch of panelists that are involved and have participated and are going to be, having a discussion, I guess, for the general public to talk about the stigma that exists and the behind using cannabis, being in the cannabis industry at all, as well as advocating for cannabis use, especially in the medical professional community. Tell me about Let's Talk Cannabis.
So I created actually a series of events, and the very first one was last January, and we had on our panel Jonathan Zaid from CFAM, the Canadians for Fair Access to Medical Marijuana. We had the Arthritis Society and a couple of doctors. And we had a sold-out event in the theater, standing room only, and the demographic was interesting. It was mostly elder people and seniors. I would say the age was over 60. So I had another one. So the first one was called Medical Marijuana. It's high time we learned the facts, right? and so that was a good one. The second one was called Medical Marijuana 411, because I had it on April 11th, 411. Let's talk about chronic pain and mental health. And that was also a good one with some doctors, because I know that chronic pain and mental health go hand in hand. When one is in pain all the time, one often suffers from anxiety and depression, right? And other things, which are mental health concerns. So that was the second one. Third one we had was just November the 3rd. And we were actually gearing up to address the business community and the legal and HR considerations. So we had a great panel, an amazing panel of, I had a lawyer, a doctor, an educator, and a nurse who's also an HR professional, and a group benefits specialist. So we had a really fantastic event, and we were dealing with issues of cannabis in the workplace. So, for instance,
So you're including diverse professionals, right? So, we're talking about events here, so, so people can wrap their mind around that. Gone are the hippie days of, a bunch of hip flower children standing up on the stage. We're talking about, professionals, people, esteemed in their communities, discussing the issues on a real level.
Right. And like, say, for instance, if I was employed and I told my employer that I took medical cannabis every single day and I got fired, that's a human rights issue now. And so the employee has the ability to sue or to file a complaint. On the employer's side, they need to understand their duty to accommodate if someone needs medical cannabis just to function, where many of us do. And so there are layers of issues. And so I was trying to sort of educate as many people as I could in a very short period of time. But I'm really reconsidering, I don't know, I get a lot of pushback. And specifically from Richmond Hill. And today in the Toronto Star, our Richmond Hill mayor, there was an article about him and how they don't want to have a CCDO, like a government-run retail store.
They said 90% of the people in Richmond Hill don't want a store there or something. You were saying.
It's just so I feel based on that article today and what I know and all the pushback I'm receiving, my belief is that Richmond Hill is living in the Stone Age. So
isn't it an oxymoron though? I mean, if you're getting pushback about hosting these events, but your event is selling out.
It's not always selling out, but the thing is, I was trying to gear it to the business community this time, and there's a lot of stigma. A lot of people wouldn't even answer my emails because it had the C word in it. You know, the C word used to be cancer. Now it's cannabis, right?
Yeah. Think of another word that the C word used to represent, but we won't go there.
No. I can understand where the businesses were, are they should get involved in that, because I know myself, I have been asked by a business, what are their rights and what can they do, and what has to be done. And I mentioned to them that there are going to be some things that are going to be coming out, and I'm sure you can elaborate more into all that. Like we say, accommodate the patient. What does an employer have to do as far as accommodate the patient? Let's say somebody who medicates every few hours by going outside and smoking a joint. Is that something that they would have to allow a patient to do, or maybe explain that a little bit?
Well, that's up to my HR professionals, but as I understand it, the employers have a duty to accommodate, because those of us that need cannabis for medical reasons, typically most of us have a disability. So it's like going back to human rights issues again. So having PTSD, for instance, post-traumatic stress disorder, is an invisible handicap. Just because I can get up and I can, get dressed and get to point A and B and function, doesn't mean that I'm not suffering. That no one knows about the nightmares or the sleepless nights I've had, or the anxiety attacks just trying to get out.
Well, those of us with PTSD, we all have good days. We have bad days. You don't want to be anywhere near me on a bad day. That's for damn sure. But I mean, I have a normal life on a good day. But what happens after the lights go out, that's another story.
Yeah, and many people, because in my view of this whole thing, we're all patients. Every single human being on the planet has an endocannabinoid system, right? And cannabis is made up of hundreds of cannabinoids, and those work very well with our CB1 and CB2 receptors. And I don't understand the science completely, but I'm obsessed with the research, and I even some animals have an endocannabinoid system. So I think cannabis is good for some pets in certain situations. I think that's why it's so good for a host of different conditions: epilepsy, Parkinson's disease, PTSD, side effects of cancer treatment. People use cannabis to get off alcohol. People use cannabis to get off their opioid or reduce their opioid prescriptions, right? So
tobacco as well.
Oh, and tobacco, exactly. And tobacco is much worse than alcohol, too, if you look at the stats. So I think that I'm so, obviously I don't care for injustice, but I read an amazing book called Chasing the Scream by an author and reporter called Johann Hari, and he traveled the world and to find out the real truth about how we were lied to by the American government in the 1920s. And they were blaming weed on black men raping white women, and it's mostly Hispanic families and black families got ruined because of this one politician guy in the U.S. in the 1920s that just turned it all around. And so many innocent families have been ruined,
Yeah.
And
Harry Anslinger is his name.
Yes, that's right. Harry Anslinger, right? And so I encourage everybody on the planet to read that book, please, called Chasing the Scream. And the author is Johann Hari, Hari. It's just hugely informative. And now I learned that through that book that marijuana is actually a slang Spanish word, meaning Mary Jane, and it's racist, basically, because the U.S. government tried to make it sound Mexican and blame it on these innocent people.
Yeah, there's many books out there explaining it all to us. Those of us that long term in the community are very familiar with Mr. Anslinger's work and his history. Several books out there with the history written on it. Chasing the Scream is one of them. It's a good book as well. Yeah, there are several books out there that got us explain how we got here.
There was even a politician down on the East Coast who was upset because people were calling it marijuana, and he was making sure that everybody was well aware that the real name was cannabis.
I read about that. I read about that. But then the College of Physicians and Surgeons uses the word marijuana. Some governments use that word too, government websites, and so. I don't know.
I'm actually impressed that the Canadian government with the ACMPR changed it from marijuana to cannabis. And that was one of the first things I noticed when the ACMPR came out. They used cannabis. Hey!
Right. I know, finally, because that's what it is. That's the plant. That's the name of the plant, right?
That's right. That's right.
So there's a lot of, there's layers and layers of issues. I don't know.
So
but I don't.
Getting back to your panel, you have people that speak on all of the above issues that we kind of just touched on briefly there in that conversation, right?
Yeah.
So you're touching on human resources, taking people, fighting for your right through, what was it that we just said?
It's a human rights violation if the employer doesn't accommodate, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Human rights violation and that kind of thing. So you have doctors on that speak to the medical benefits. You have people on that talk about the history. I noticed some of the people's names on here. I'm very familiar with them. Dr. Ira Price.
He's on my next one. Yeah,
he's
on my next pen.
Coming up, right?
Yeah, he's coming up, and he's a fascinating, very passionate emergency room doctor, right? Who has seen also, like me, too much death, unnecessary death, due to the opioid crisis that we're having. And he's very passionate and very knowledgeable. So it would be great. We also have Dr. Stephen Orloff, the very first interdisciplinary cannabis clinic in York Region in Thornhill. We have him. And then Hilda Gann, who is a nurse but also an HR specialist. And Aviva Abraham, who is our group insurance and benefits specialist. So there's others, and we're also So we're trying to. But the thing is, so we're trying to get it from all angles, and it's something like I've not seen done anywhere else. And
do you find when you ask these people to participate in your forums that they're very accepting as far as do you get many people who turn you down?
The panelists? No, I don't.
Yeah.
No, the panelists, no, they're very grateful. And two of the women called me up on separate occasions and said, thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, because they understand that cannabis is here to stay. And also the level of, I have to say, stupidity. There's absolute stupidity, stigma and stupidity that's going on out there. And we've all been brainwashed over the years. And so... brainwashed by the U.S. government in the 1920s, right? By this guy. So I'm very, very passionate about this subject. I will not stop. And I feel that more and more, as I'm trying to elevate the image of cannabis and have people respect it as medicine. And as more and more people come forward, like highly functioning professionals, I think that we can't ignore the voices of the patients anymore, and nor can the government, and nor can
when's your next forum that you're going to be holding?
So I have the next one planned in Richmond Hill on January 31st. It'll be on January 31st, but I'm thinking now, as of just a few hours ago, seeing this article in the Toronto Star, our mayor, thinking of moving it out of Richmond Hill. I don't know, but my whole vision was because the world is looking at Canada to set the stage for this legalization and regulation. Hopefully we can get it right, and I can deliver the education and the laws as they unfold over the next year. But I've had so much pushback.
Yeah, don't jump the gun on that. Give it some thought, because even though that article came out, that might be the reason to have it there.
I said, I was talking to
you know what I mean? You want to go where it's not accepted, because that's who needs the education.
I know, I agree.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do it in York. Yeah, I wanted to really do this in York Region, because York Region, the population of York Region is higher than the whole province of Manitoba. And so we have a high population and highly educated people. And sometimes really, really stupid comments come out of highly educated people. It's overwhelming. Like somebody said to me, a couple of months ago, "Oh, my group doesn't want to." I said, "I'll give your group front row seats to my educational forums." And he said to me, "Oh, no, they don't want to get addicted." I said, "Really? They're not going to get addicted to? You think they're going to get addicted to education? I'm selling education, or I'm presenting." And actually, I haven't made a dime over the last 3 years, and I've put all my blood, sweat, tears, and my own money into this thing, right? So, and I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to keep going. But
nothing wrong with getting addicted to cannabis education.
I mean, I'm afraid I'm going to be addicted. What are you going to get addicted to?
Yeah.
You're coming to a forum for knowledge.
Exactly. And also to stay ahead of the curve. No, sorry. What's the phrase? Stay ahead of the curve, because businesses are at risk of liability if they do not accommodate their employees, right? And so they're at risk of liability. So people should learn and draft their HR policies soon before the laws unfold, because they're going to get some big surprises, I think, if people are not prepared in business.
You're saying there's more of us out there, and it's happening more and more. And people are saying, I've been hearing this throughout a lot of people that aren't consumers and people that are sort of against it and that kind of thing. Oh, everybody wants to be part of pot now. Everybody wants to smoke pot now. Because we started talking about legalization, now everybody wants to do it. No, honey, they were doing it the whole time.
Exactly.
They were just really fucking quiet.
Agreed. Or afraid to speak up. Exactly. Right.
Yeah. They didn't become mass murderers.
Yeah, it wasn't. They didn't just start because people started talking about it. It's everybody's coming out of the closet. It's not a new thing. The whole time that they've been coming over to your house playing bridge with you, Grandma, they've been stoned. Exactly. You just didn't know it.
And I have
situations. That's the difference.
Yeah, and I have situations now that Grandma is getting it from her grandchildren. I have several situations like that, because they get them on the medical cannabis oil and they find it too expensive. It's really, really helping with their arthritis. But
like you said, your forums are attended by a lot of people 60 and plus, and that's what I know myself. I have found that out over the years, educating people at documentary films or being in the front lines at a show someplace. It is the senior people.
Senior population is my most inquiries come from the senior population. Very few from younger people. Younger people don't seek me out to talk to me. Vast majority is the senior population.
Yeah, I have it all. I got it all, like from all ages, like 27 years old to, I have a client who's 27 years old with fibromyalgia, 37 brain tumor, 37 years old, and they're finding relief. And that's all we want, relief from the suffering, right?
Yeah, improving the quality of life.
That's exactly right. Yes, you're right. But there's another thing that's really, really, in my opinion, stupid, and that's now the government, and specifically, so they say the government says that we're going to have legal access to 4 plants per household, and we have to smoke it at home and grow the plants in our own home. Well, if we're talking about harm reduction, like all the politicians are saying, Isn't that where the children are at home? You know?
Well, and that's also going to be problematic now because a lot of the individual provinces are coming up with no home growing allowed.
Yeah,
Oh, is
what's
that
that?
right?
Quebec and Manitoba, no home growing allowed.
Yeah, and
Really?
and one of them, I can't remember, but somebody on the East Coast is looking at it. So, yeah.
I thought we could have 4 plants per household or something. 4 plants per
Federal
household.
law will allow you, but provincial law, depending on where you live, they will trump feds, right?
And as we're seeing here with your mayor, he doesn't even want it in his community being sold.
Oh, mayors can trump a mayor can trump federal, provincial, everything. The mayor can say what goes in a town.
Is that right? Well, apparently other mayors are saying the same thing too. But it's just like mind blowing. And so the government is saying you got to smoke it in your house, you grow it in your house. Isn't that where the kids are?
That's where the kids are.
And if you are smoking it in a condo and it seeps into your next door neighbor. Isn't that like saying there's no peeing section in the pool? Like, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just amazed at they haven't thought these things through.
No.
And the illicit market, as I may have said before, is saying, thank you, government, because our profits are going to expand tenfold. And they are, most of the people that I know, I mean, there's a highly sophisticated system of really smart craft cannabis growers that, growing specific strains for specific conditions now. And you can't wipe them out of the equation, I don't think,
I completely agree.
Yeah. We can get into all of that and more in a couple of minutes.
After the commercial break.
Okay.
All right. Yep. And we're going to hear some more from Dr. Sue Sisley as she talks about cannabis and PTSD. And then we return. We'll continue our conversation with Sherry Bennett. You're listening to the Pace Radio Show. We are live here at lifestyleradio.ca and .net.
What we find from patients is a lot of them learn how to use it more in a targeted way to manage. For instance, a lot of our PTSD patients have flashbacks at night and real trouble sleeping, and so they can simply dose marijuana in the evenings to help them decompress so that they can get some rest at night, which normally they couldn't do.
Man, have you been to Canadays yet? Canadays, Campbellford's premier cannabis culture shop at 19 Bridge Street West. They've got bongs, oil rigs, grinders, and papers. Everything you need for consumption. They've got seeds, soil, nutrients, and dome trays too. Everything you need for cultivation. Get top quality seeds from top suppliers like Canuck and wholesaler Nexus. Canadays. They've got all kinds of awesome cannabis novelties, clothing, and apparel. I know, right? It's a lot more than just a bong shop. Interested in gaining legal access? Canadays can help. They're a PACE information center. People advocating cannabis education? Come by the shop and check it out. 19 Bridge Street West, Campbellford. Canadays. Have your say without saying a word. Canadays.ca.
Hi, this is Al Graham of the Pace Radio Show. Are you keeping pace, as in keeping people advocating cannabis education? If you're not, and you're a cannabis consumer, then why not? Others are working hard every day to help educate people about cannabis so you can enjoy your daily 420. Get involved and speak out. Be loud and proud so that you can keep pace. Tune into the Pace Radio Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to hear about people advocating cannabis education here on lifestyleradio.ca.
Canada, the time to act is now. These days, your customers are seeking variety. Increase your earning potential by expanding your inventory with CC Nexus, Canada's largest cannabis seed wholesaler. CC Nexus stocks over 60 reputable breeders, including Canuck seeds, with a wealth of autoflower, regular, feminized, and CBD strains. All first-time customers will receive a free pack of Canuck seeds, plus a mug, t-shirt, and additional promotional materials. Add strains and increase your profit with CC Nexus, your Canadian-owned and operated wholesaler of cannabis seeds. Discreet, worldwide stealth shipping from Canada, supporting you locally. Call today 1-844-843-7995, 1-844-843-7995, or visit us at ccnexus.global.
Proof is in the clinical response. We're seeing patients who are able to walk away from a lot of their psych meds and their opioids and simply manage their symptoms with one drug, marijuana, and that speaks volumes, despite what the government says about marijuana having no medical value. You can't deny all these anecdotal with one drug.
That's right. You can't deny all this proof out there. Yeah. Welcome back. We are the Pace Radio Show, and we, as always, live here at lifestyleradio.ca. Catch us over at Spreaker as well. You can also catch us at the Pace Radio website at pace-online.ca. Tonight, our bumper music, which features the voice and educational information from Dr. Sue Sisley. And Dr. Sue is a psychiatrist and former clinical assistant professor at the University of Arizona. She got fired back in 2014, and one of the reasons was believed because of her study of cannabis and PTSD. But in April of 2016, the DEA, yes, the big DEA in the U.S., approved her study, which aimed at determining whether cannabis, is an effective treatment of PTSD. Check it out online. Today on the show, we've got Sherry Bennett, as well as joint host, Kim Cooper. Okay, ladies, we're into the last segment, and we got a few more things to cover, don't we?
Yeah, just a couple. Just a couple. Yeah, we always do. We never get through everything.
We've had to expand in 2 hours.
Yeah. That's for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, just before we went on break there, we were talking about, your next info session. So just to give that one last plug, people can look for something called Let's Talk Cannabis. And that'll be coming up sometime in the near future. They can watch your website for info, right?
That's right. Website is letstalkcannabis.ca, and we'll have Dr. Ira Price, an emergency room doctor from Hamilton, and Dr. Stephen Orlov, and then the other panel members that I mentioned before.
Yeah.
And, we're looking forward to continue with educating the community, employers, employees. As I said before, we are all patients. And,
the stigma. It's all about ending the stigma.
And raising awareness and elevating the status of cannabis. This is a very, very powerful medicine, natural plant. You know, so as we all know.
That's it. Everybody is using it. Let's stop the end of stigma that is preventing us from having a normal conversation and continuing the education.
Tommy Chong was a great actor. Not everybody is like Tommy Chong when they're smoking cannabis.
That's correct.
Right.
That is 100% correct. Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's also important to get the correct factual information and be knowledgeable, because it's here to stay. It's here. Like you said before, it's here.
It always has been. It's just come out of the shadows.
Yeah, it's only been illegal for 100 years out of the last few, thousands, billions, right?
Yeah. It wasn't going anywhere. It was pushed into the shadows, and it was suppressed, but it never really went away. Many cultures continue to use it, and many groups of people continue to use it, and now it's come back out of the shadows. It's challenging the falsehoods that were made about it 100 years ago.
That's exactly right, and it's been around for 5,000 years, and I believe it started in India and China, and for medicinal use, right?
It's been around for ages.
It's been a long time, and so it's time for people to understand the correct factual information, and know their rights. And then this thing about, for medical patients, now the government's trying to say, so what they're doing is they're saying to the public they're legalizing it, and then coming up with 45 new different laws So that if one has, if one has 0.2 nanograms per milliliter of THC in their blood, one is considered, I could have like a $1,000 fine, or depending on the level, it's just obscene. Because those of us who need it for medical reasons, we need THC.
Yeah.
And
none of us will pass.
I could medicate tonight and have THC and then not have any for 2 weeks, but it may still be in my system.
That's right.
And
none of us would pass.
Right. And I repeat over and over again, there is a huge difference between being medicated and being impaired.
Yep.
And many people function much better when they have cannabis in their health treatments or whatever their treatments protocol. I learned of a story that a woman got her driver's license back from the Ministry of the Transportation, whatever it is, MTO, Ministry, whatever it is, and because she had seizures, epileptic seizures, and told them that medical cannabis was helping her seizures, and she actually was seizure-free for over a year and got her driver's license back. And fully disclosed that she was taking medical cannabis. So these stories are coming more and more rapidly in the media.
You know, I mean, it's helping. It's helping. And the more we talk about it, see, now we've got an instance there where, MTO is accepting somebody back with a driver's license because they're seizure-free. They're aware that cannabis is part of that regime. Now, if she's driving and her blood is over the limit, which it will be if she sticks on her regime, how can she be charged with impaired? That's why the laws they're coming out with, they're so flawed. They're not going to fly in a court.
It's all based on science.
You know, everything is going to be challenged in court. Everything about this law will be challenged. It isn't legalization if we're all being put in jail in a more frequent manner than we are today.
Exactly. And the thing is, it'll clog up the court system. And the police, there aren't enough police officers in the world to be able to manage the peaceful civil disobedience that will occur over the next year. There's just not enough resources at the municipality levels because people are like, this is, it's mind-boggling, really.
Well, I got my hands on some mouth swabs that the OPP will be using. And I got my hands on some of them. And we've been doing some trials with the swabs to see what they come up with, right? So somebody like me, I medicate all day, all night. I medicate in the morning. As soon as I wake up, I open my eyes, there's medication going in my body in one form or another. Most of it is edible, some of it's suppository, some of it is smoking, right? So we did a test on several individuals besides myself. One person who only consumes by smoking. This person vaporizes a lot and smokes joints occasionally. And they tested positive on the swab 10 hours after consumption. It didn't show negative. It didn't show negative until 11 hours after consumption.
I think it could be up to 2 weeks, though, from what I've read.
Yeah.
Right? So
11 hours.
You can be 30 days with it in your blood, but as far as the saliva on your
saliva was 11 hours after.
Yeah, it's supposed to show more recent use.
No, 11 hours.
So back
when
to
it
being
went negative.
Yeah. So back to being impaired, okay, this issue of impaired. A lot of people are in such physical pain that's a worse impairment. A lot of people that are coming home from funerals after burying their children, driving, that's being impaired. Some of the elders that I work with have just, they're shuffling around using walkers. They have no reflexes and they're still driving around. That's impaired. And they're getting off their sleep medications from last night. They're sleeping pills.
That's right.
So the government needs to find, and for each of us, as we know, are snowflakes. Like what a good dosage for me is not, or even the strains. We all have to learn how to use it based on
individual
our own
dosing.
Exactly. So how, this is just
you
absurd,
can't regulate
whatever.
it.
And so
You can't pick a dose and say this is the one that's going to make everybody stoned, because we all build a tolerance. When you're on this medication for a long time, you're building a tolerance. And what I do on a daily basis might put somebody else on the floor, and yet another cancer patient that's a higher dose than me, it wouldn't be a drop in their bucket.
Right.
So I mean, you can't set a dose that's going to say somebody's impaired, because once we've been on these doses for a long time, we all function normally. We operate our businesses, we carry on with daily life, and we drive cars.
And quality of life is enhanced considerably, right? Huge. Quality of life.
With alcohol, they have a set reading, 0.08. Cannabis are coming out with 2 to 5 nanograms, but one is based on science, which is the alcohol one, and the cannabis one is based on an arbitrary number.
There's so much dysfunction and so much I really would hope, I wish that Canada would get it right. But so far, I'm concerned. What I'm seeing now, I'm really, really concerned. I mean, about...
Do you have any concern, and I'm hearing this from some other patients, that the legalization will eventually just sort of sweep all the medical research and information under the rug, and the stuff that we've been achieving now, will just sort of go away? And
No, I hope the more and more people that learn about this, the more and more people are going to want to research it. I would love to teach this in school and tell the kids, maybe you shouldn't have it until your brain is well developed, but if you have 300 seizures a day and you're under the age 25, and you need it, right? And to educate children at a very early age how to respect it as medicine, and to know that it's not the devil weed that we were all taught to believe or brainwashed to believe.
I think that's it.
And if parents and teachers do not teach their children the accurate information, so at age 14, and when somebody goes out and smokes a joint and finds that it helps them focus and helps with their anxiety levels and helps them study, they're going to distrust their parents and teachers, parents and teachers, right? So we have to teach the children the correct information and start. And another thing, if people want to grow it themselves, they have to know what they're doing, for heaven's sakes. If grandma's growing her 4 plants in the backyard, and then she doesn't know what she's doing, like one male plant can wipe out a whole field of female plants, I understand, right?
Yeah.
So for those that want to grow it themselves to avoid buying it from the government, then I suggest learn about it, get educated, and learn how to do it right. You don't wipe out your neighbors, or you don't. I don't know.
And so you don't grow a product that can harm you, because there are many products that are sold on the market in gardening stores across the country that are not good to use for cannabis plants. You're consuming this, especially if you're combusting it as a smokable. Many of these elements turn toxic when you do that. So they're not recommended for cannabis. So getting the education on growing the plant is going to give you a safer product in the end that you can count on as well.
That's right. So knowledge is power. And for some reason, still a lot of people don't want to talk about it, or they're not interested, or they say they're not interested, and watching from the sidelines. But I'm not going to stop. I'm getting tired, but I'm not going to stop.
No, keep going.
Excellent.
Keep spreading the word.
Yeah, and so I just wanted to tell you too, I have a really a good friend who owns the publisher of High Canada magazine. So if anybody wants to know a little bit of my story, part 1 is in the March issue of High Canada magazine, just in case anybody wants to know. Because
we all know and love Cy. Yes,
I know
Cy is a wonderful man.
Yes, I love him, and I met him. I saw him recently in he's a decent human being. Yeah. And so I met him in Ottawa, too, at the LIFT conference, too. So it's good. But I'm going to call him soon and ask him to do part 2 of my story, because he doesn't know the part 2 yet, the one that I just told you. So I'm going to ask him if he would entertain the idea and then just get it out there. I think the more and more faces we put to this, the better. Like the more and more patients that speak out about how cannabis has changed their lives. And in some cases saved their lives, right? So getting back to, just want to make one more point and then I'll try to be quiet. But which is going to be difficult. But anyway, so the lawyer who helped me through my court process was one of the best sexual assault lawyers in downtown Toronto. And she's also the lawyer for a guy called Martin Cruz. Martin was the one that brought the Maple Leaf Gardens scandal to the forefront of the media. And so he came forward like what a brave individual. And then there was a lot of media attention about the horrors that happened to young boys in Maple Leaf Gardens. And so he obviously, in my books, probably lived with post-trauma. Guy jumped off a bridge. He's dead. And, it breaks my heart. On Remembrance Day, I was remembering my grandfather who fought in Vimy Ridge, but I was also remembering Martin Cruz, who died by suicide. Because I think the shame and the trauma and the humiliation and the feeling of isolation got to him. And that's what I want to leave this on. Yeah,
that's what we're trying to prevent with other people in the future.
Coming forward, exactly.
There is help and there's some relief. There's a way to get some relief. There's a way to do it naturally that you aren't poisoning your body. There's people to talk to and there is help.
Agreed. That's why, I'm motivated by, I've said this over and over again, those that no longer have a voice, right? So that's my intention, to be the voice for all the people. Yeah.
And it sounds like you're doing a terrific job doing that.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. You're doing some great things out there with Bayview Concierge as well. You mentioned a lot of your now that's not just a cannabis thing as well. Like a lot of your senior clients are the ones that inquired to you about cannabis, which has really got you on the road to what you're doing now, right?
Yeah, that's right. Not only seniors, but others too. Like just general. I talk to a lot of people,
right?
And so yes, not just seniors. I have a wide spectrum of people that I've talked to, and I'm interested in the survivor personalities and how do people survive some horrors that they go through. So, and mostly my bereaved mother friends. Oh God, I don't know how they get up in the morning. That's got to be the worst thing, to have to bury a child.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, you never want to bury a child.
Yeah, so I'm driven by a lot of things, and you got the synopsis tonight. You got it. But
here in our small community, there's been some young people that have passed on, and that's due to swallowing the wrong pill and
or accidental opioid.
It's like Russian roulette.
It's a what?
There's a lot of that.
It's like Russian roulette.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that in our community.
Is that right? And it's just tragic. It's tragic, and it doesn't affect
And cannabis can help. Cannabis can help so much in that, as you call it, an epidemic. It's North American wide. If people are given or told about the choice of using cannabis instead of opiate drugs, without the fear of the stigma, you probably see more people go now.
Yes,
that's the biggest thing, is addressing this stigma. It took us 100 years to get here. It's going to take us some time to get back. Yes, I keep saying that, but it's never going to happen if we don't start.
Exactly. Can I just say one more thing?
Oh, you got 7. You got 7. Well, you got 5 more minutes of saying what you want.
Okay. So So my educational forums, we give a portion of the ticket sales to a registered charity called High Notes Avante. So the High Notes Gala for mental health. It has nothing to do with cannabis, just a lot of lovely musicians and professionals coming forward to tell their recovery stories from recovering from mental health conditions like depression, etc. And so they're also trying to elevate the status of mental health and stigma. So I'm here I am talking about like 3 things that have stigma, you know, cannabis and mental health issues. And what else? What's the other one? Oh, and doctor assault. Here I am, all like I'm just.
You're knee deep in it now.
Oh my God! I don't know how my life is unfolded like this, but it's and all 3. It's just trying to bring everything out of the shadows.
You've become addicted to cannabis education and sharing the knowledge with others.
Yeah, and I'm trying to bring everything out of the shadows all at once instead of one issue at a time, right? I'm sort of blasting it out of the water right now.
Tackle them all.
Ah, dear. So I gotta take a deep breath.
There we go. Everybody's
deep
good.
Breath.
Okay.
Deep breath.
Yeah, Sherry, is there anything else that you'd like to touch on here? We're down to the last 5 minutes. Is there?
No, thank you. Unless you have any questions, no, I'm just very grateful. Thank you very, very much for having me participate tonight. This is great. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, hey, as the song, our theme song says from the Clementine Band, people want to speak up, or no one's speaking up, and here we give people like yourself a spot to speak up and to have a voice. So
it's so important.
It's all very, very important. That's right. Yeah. Exactly. It's how we all learn. And as you said, you're still learning. I've been a cannabis advocate for 15 years, and I'm still
really.
There's others, they've been in it longer. There's always something new that's coming out on this.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. Right. We're learning something new every day. It's a whirlwind education that just never stops.
Yeah.
That's right.
And one thing I want to mention about your panel, congratulations getting the Arthritis Society on there.
Mm-hmm.
To get those types of, groups, the Arthritis, Crohn's or whatever, to be involved in this with all that, the fear, the stigma and all that. I think it's quite an achievement too. So I thought I'd congratulate you on
Thank you. Thank you so much. And then just like a little plug for Arthritis Society. They have a great resource of information on their website, on cannabis specifically.
They do, eh?
Yeah. Arthritis Society. If you look on there under alternative medicine, I think they have a whole section on medical cannabis, and so wonderful. And also, CFAM, the Canadians for Fair Access to Medical Marijuana, a wonderful organization. You must know of them. And Jonathan Zaid, right?
Yeah. All righty. Mm-hmm. Well, was that was that your shout out, or have you got a shout out that you would like to say to our listeners? Person, place, thing, website, where they can find you?
You can just keep checking the updates on letstalkcannabis.ca. And please connect to me on Twitter, which is, how did I put it? I think it's called talk_cannabis. I think that's what it's called.
All right.
And then on Twitter, if you follow me on Twitter, and then that'll be great. And we can share information. And I think that there is power in numbers. So like I said before, I'm very grateful because you're helping me spread the word, right? And so it's important. It's huge.
It is very important. It is.
And I think to humanity, not just us Canadians, to everybody in the world, right? So
that's right. It's a worldwide issue for sure. Okay. Well, thank you for that. Kim, have you got a shout out that you'd like to...
I do. I have a shout out tonight. I'd like to give my shout out to Thompson Caribou Concentrates. I had the opportunity to partake in some of their products. First time I used their mail order company. Very happy with my stuff that I received in the mail. Excellent packaging, some innovative ideas to make sure that it will arrive at your door no matter what. And that's all I'll say about the packaging. Very innovative ideas, and way to go, guys. Appreciate the extra effort there. And great products. So check out Thompson Caribou Concentrates. I personally very much enjoyed everything that I received from them, from flesh flower to concentrates. They got pretty much everything. Yep.
Super. All right. And as far as, I don't usually have a shout out, but right now I got a thing for a friend by the name of Laura Kirby. A shout out to her. She recovers from surgery. She was involved in an auto accident in Ottawa last week. She was airlifted into the Ottawa hospital. Yesterday she endured a 15-hour surgery in order to help her with her head injuries. So we wish her a big recovery. It's going to be a long time, but our fingers are crossed for her. So.
Healing vibes going that way, absolutely.
Laura was actually a guest during the August long weekend at the Freedom Festival at Freedom Fields Nature's Ranch. She talked about her her mother and the cancer situation with her mom and how she was benefiting from the cannabis use. And her mom's 78. So our well wishes go out to Laura. So. All right. I will be back next Wednesday with Alicia and her guests as we continue to educate the uneducated and promote those fighting to end cannabis prohibition. You can find us on Twitter at Pace Radio. You can also like us on the Pace Radio Show on Facebook. Instagram, we are the Pace Radio Show, and we're online at pace-online.ca. Thank yous as always to our sponsor, CC Nexus, Canada's cannabis seed wholesaler. They can be found at ccnexus.global. Al Rapp of Lifestyle Radio, also to Wayne here at Canada Days. He's got his Christmas lights up. He's putting them up during the show. And a big thank you to you, Sherry, for coming onto the program and sharing your story. Really appreciate what you've done. I don't know how often you've done this, but done a good job.
Nope. That was the first time. Thank you.
First time. You there you go.
Yep.
Good job.
I hope
thank you.
First of many. So.
Thank you.
And to you, Kim, thank you as always for everything you do for this program. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Al.
And to our listeners, thank you for listening. And good night. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Good night.
So what are you doing? Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have had it.
You might